Okay, welcome back, friends. I am here recording this video in Rome, where some of my ancestors on my father's side, today is actually my father's death anniversary, are connected to. So they come from southern Italy in Calabria. And I figured, as opposed to putting on, a scene and making it look really perfect and beautiful around me, I would kind of leave it in its mess. Authenticity is at the foundation and is really at the root of what offers us a sacred and soul satisfying sexuality and embodied experience of love. And as many of us already know, our authenticity has been oftentimes compromised by the ways that we weren't nurtured when we were very young. And so the different shapes that our subtle body and that our intuition and intuitive knowing and autonomic nervous system took on in order to receive the care and the love that they needed are the exact dynamics that oftentimes play out in our most intimate relationships, especially the ones that have to do with romance, love, and sex, but also in friendships and community, right? The witch wound, is so much a part of what we heal when we come together, because there's this opportunity to really feel and receive one another's gifts, but also, as you're receiving the gift of what I'm going to share with you today about this erotic essence that comes through our connection to orgasm and female ejaculation, you also get to receive the wisdom and the intuition that's coming to you in this moment. Meaning, as I'm speaking, because I'm channeling what it is that wants to be shared with you in this moment, there's an opportunity for you to tap into what's happening in your field, what's firing off in your body, what's resonating, what's repulsing, what's pulling you, what's popping in, who's popping in, right, to your consciousness. And these are all ways that we can start to actually dissolve the barriers that really keep us from experiencing intimacy in the ways that we often desire. What I mean by that is when we allow ourselves to actually receive, as we're not just receive the person that we're communicating or relating to, which in this case, in this moment, is me and you, but you're really receiving what I'm sharing, especially in this context. But you're also allowing it to put you in contact with your own inner wisdom and light, your own deep, dark, impulses that might arise in the form of activation, right? When we're looking at authentic, erotic sexuality, spirituality, and understanding ourselves more deeply, we have to welcome activation. We can't just, come into our, parasympathetic all the time, although that's so needed. That part of us that can really rest and digest our experiences, getting massages, receiving, the things that really make us feel safe and good in our bodies. But we also need to know, like, how do I relate to anger? Like, how do I relate to like growling or being growled at? And like, what comes up inside me that feels like afraid or weird or uncertain about expressing something that's like ugly or like uncomfortable or, like I said, angry or grief, right? It's such a big doorway for us into this more authentic expression of the divinity that we carry within our bodies and us having access to that. To me, that's really what erotic liberation is about. It's connected to how we can tap into our bodies, and especially when we come together in our circles and we do these practices, they're not just practices, they're portals into the power that is inherent within us, right? That religion, that, these systems societally have really been stopping, the flow of through their control and, all the oppressive forces that do exist, the evil that does exist in this world. And for us to come together and acknowledge that depth of goodness, that depth of like how hard, we all work and try to become more fluid and malleable in our perception, so we can actually access truth and stand in it, with a straight spine, but also soften into the infinite layers of our feminine being as a power, of our vulnerability as a power and as a strength, does take effort. And we want to be able to open to it with ease, and also just feeling like we're having a good time, because why else would we spend our time doing this work if it wasn't to remember and reconnect to the truth of everything that we already carry within us. In the particular womb work that we share in Body Temple, we have two different phases. In the first phase, we're really working with our inherent worth. We're working with the mother in the largest sense, the divine mother, and developing and reclaiming our connection to her through different earth-based rituals and practices, but also through our body. So learning how to ask our body, what she's wanting to say, what they're wanting to say, what he's wanting to say, and learning how to listen through physical and emotional sensation and image is a huge part of the foundation. And so we use breath, we use pelvic diaphragm breath, right? Because our pelvic floor isn't just a hard surface, it's something that moves, it breathes. So we deepen and we activate even our vagus nerve through our breath. So we start to give the body these signals that we are safe. We resource by looking around and seeing where we are, because the body needs to be shown, not just told. That's why affirmations in especially feminine bodies don't work that well. If you haven't noticed, you're like, this is bullshit, because we really need to see it, we need to know it, we need to feel it, we need to experience it. And so in our first phase, we're really working with that. We're down regulating, we're getting in touch with, we're starting to explore what we really need to feel safe. And then we open into grief ritual. We open the doors into exploring healthy activation, healthy aggression, right? Which is our sympathetic, our ability to take action, our ability to get out of the way if there's a car coming, right? It's not inherently negative, although oftentimes we equate, sympathetic with unpleasant emotions and experiences. But it's gives us the energy, the Shakti, right, that we need to change the pattern, to do something different in the moment, or to just simply observe ourselves with love when we can't. So in the second phase, we work with more active orgasmic breath, right? There's some practices in there for you to work with where you can actually just learn to connect to your own arousal, which does take practice, but is something that you can have if you want. A lot of this comes down to, what do you want, right? I'm not here to tell you what you should want. This isn't what heals our trauma. What heals our trauma is choice. And so you get to choose, what do you want? Do you want to internally orgasm, G-spot, cervical, A-spot, P-spot, right? There's so many places inside our womb that we can orgasm. Do you want to ejaculate? Do you ejaculate already? What is your if you were to imagine you're, the most sexually liberated that you could be, what does that look like for you, right? If you were to just let yourself dream it without all the, okay, well, I need this and this, relationship and this agreement. If you just let yourself dream and be in touch with the deeper desires of that, in a safe way, just between you and the goddess, these are experiences that you can also provide within yourself in your relationship to the goddess. You can have a three-way with the goddess. You can have a three-way with your, past self and your future self. That, so much can happen in our bodies because there is this portal into other realms, into the unseen. The body is the mystery. It's the moon. It's the subconscious. And obviously I'm not speaking about the physical, but the internal layers of our body. And this is why it's so transformational. That's why love is transformational. It's not a transactional thing, the way some of us have been taught and trained, or, exist inside relationships with. It's so transformational. And that's why we want to approach it with sacred, awareness and consciousness, and also freedom to make mistakes and learn from them as well. The third phase in level 1 in our womb work, which is called Shameless Goddess, connected to the Shameless Goddess in the Indian mystical traditions named Laja Gauri, who has a lotus for a head, and she's all breasts. The stone is breasts and vulva. And so you directly worship her body as the divine essence of Shakti. So in Shameless Goddess, in the third phase of level 1, we do a mirror practice. And the mirror practice is so powerful because we approach the body with the way we would approach a temple. So slowly, with reverence, with deep intention and prayer, we approach her the way we would, bow our heads down to receive the Shakti, right? In Darshan, it's called, you receive the energy of the goddess, not like because you are in her, but because there's an exchange, right, that happens when we move our bodies in this way, right? When we offer something from inside of us and we allow ourselves to receive it through these different vantage points of energy in our body, right? In shamanism, we're changing our perspective. So if we're always just like, yep, I know I'm God, I see her, I am her, good to go, right? And we're never like looking in other places or, moving our bodies, even in the yoga tradition, this is where a lot of asanas came from, was the impulse of the Shakti to move somebody upside down, to get it, because that's what the body needed in that moment to strengthen that new vantage point, right? So these are ways of like, we might be performing them at first. We might be doing this. Like if you do this with me for a moment, we might be just performing it if it wasn't a natural impulse, which most likely it wasn't. If I invited you to do it and then you chose to do it, or I invited you to, ask your vulva in this moment, ask if she would like to receive some healing or grounding energy with a physical or energetic touch, and you just take a breath and ask and see what arises in your mind, in your heart, in your sensations, in your image. And then if you feel like you received an impulse that was a yes, or you want to make the choice of a yes, you can energetically or physically cup your vulva and take a few breaths and allow your vulva to soften into your hands, even right over your clothes, right? Like, how many fucking years did I spend meditating and never one time thought to meditate cupping my vulva or with my finger in my pussy? Like, it's insane. I mean, there's good reasons why, right? You can hear the church bells in the background probably. So this is the reclamation, right? Is the deeper listening. And it can happen like that in a moment. It doesn't have to be this, this 40-minute practice, although those are important too to help deepen and work with those deeper grooves, and breaking those deeper ancestral, traumas and patterns. In this case, we can also just drop right in and just ask her and see what we receive, and then make a conscious choice based on the information that we receive, because it's all information. Our body's not usually like yes or no. Sometimes it is, and when we get those clear yes and no's, go for it, right? But everything else, you can work with it. You can make a choice, right? You're also the one who's tending the body, right? There's this beautiful parrot outside. You're the one who's, the not the, you're not in control of it, but you're receiving her, but you're also leading her sometimes because she loves to be led, right? So in this phase where we use the mirror and the mirror practice, we allow ourselves to not just look at the anatomy, the inner and outer labia, clitoris, everything we can see on the outside, and even opening our vaginal opening and looking and seeing our G-spot, which you can see if you know what you're looking for. At least the head of the G-spot you can see. You can't see the internal G-spot, the tail of it, but you can see the head of it, which is all the tissue surrounding, the spongy tissue surrounding your urethra. So it's the urethral sponge, the goddess spot, we like to call it. And the body of work that I share from Deborah Sundal, she really, explored specifically the G-spot for orgasm and ejaculation, to help really train and teach other women how to give themselves this pleasure and then teach their lovers. And, some of the main qualities of G-spot orgasm as we move from, the mirror practice and, the consent practice, and then, we go really slow and we ask the body if now's a good time to enter, and we get that information, and, we massage and cup and work with softening down into our vulva and using the breath to relax, to soften, and to really allow there to be an invitation and an opening to enter. And then, the touch that we do to build orgasm and ejaculation is called mapping. So it's bringing conscious touch. It's a little different than massage because you're really just pressing and holding, breathing, softening these different areas, right? That we do all along the G spot, from the very tip of your finger just touching in around, that's the head, to going into about one knuckle, which is the body of the G spot, all the ridges and valleys and gutters you feel. And then when you go in towards the tail, it's very light and fluffy or hard, but you breathe and you just build the orgasm and ejaculation through this consensual touch, right? So in mapping, it gives us this opportunity to like build the Shakti, right? Instead of just going for something without, with the expectations. And who likes that? Nobody. Everybody's body constricts when there's expectation, right? So why would we do that to our own bodies? We approach our body slowly, but with confidence, right? We get this education, this transmission, this lineage that we need to really be in touch with our own bodies. And maybe some of you already G-spot orgasm and ejaculate. And in that case, you can take it into these different ways of sacred ceremony, of working with sex magic, really bringing in the deeper desires that you have for love and partnership, and, even working with your finances, anything root chakra related and even sacral chakra, right? Your creative flow, your ability to, perceive and then share. All of that can be generated through this conscious and connection and mapping with your G spot. The orgasm itself really comes through the body. So it kind of starts in the legs. Oftentimes there's a tremor. It's a very like intense, full body, not just bliss body, full body, but physical full body orgasm. And it's healing for the throat chakra. It's healing for the, trauma that we might store in our wombs. It's an initiation, in my experience, every time into this deep truth that our bodies, our wombs are not here to just store pain. They're here to, really connect and give birth to new life in so many forms, including the moment to moment awareness we have of how precious and how sacred and even the awe-inspired consciousness and presence and perception we can come into that supports our body's health so much and in so many ways. So the main thing with the G-spot orgasm is using the right toy. So getting a toy that is either for cervical or G-spot orgasm that has a tail, that has a circle at the top, and I'll send you, a link, and with a company that we work with that we really love, Ona, if you want a discount on this toy that I really like, because it's also kind of small and you could use it for the mapping and then you can move to massage with it. But really slow and consistent movement with the toy or with the cock. Oftentimes you want to get off your back. You want to get on top. You want to lean over on something. You want to try movement, in different ways to really work with, finding that edge where it's pressing against the G spot, and moving nice and slow but rhythmically, really supports that process. I will show you, the G spot toy in our video and our time together, and really offer this transmission, especially around the orgasm and the ejaculation, from this place of slowness and reverence, because that's the way that I was trained, and it's also the way the practice really moved through me in terms of this work with our erotic liberation, and how it's really connected to us getting free. Like some aspects of our ego need to just be like completely like released, and some of them need to be celebrated, and some of them really need to be nurtured in order for us to receive the transmission of soul love that we carry, the liberation that we already are. Lastly, with the ejaculation, all women and people with vulvas can ejaculate if they want. It doesn't matter your age. Through menopause, you can build ejaculate. My teacher, Deborah Sandal, was 70, and she was always she would constantly tell me to make sure that I always shared how women in and through, perimenopause and menopause can experience ejaculation if they want. It does take practice. Sometimes it takes training, but you can experience it. And she did this work, like I said, for 40 straight years. So with, tens of thousands of women. So I really trust her. And her direct experience and research so much. Ejaculation really is similar. The feeling of the ejaculate is similar to the urge to pee. So, one of the main tips is to really make sure that you pee before you do any kind of intervaginal penetration. And then when you have that urge, you want to pull the cock or the toy out, and you want to gently push a little bit. And this is where, practicing solo with this is so powerful, because then you know the feeling in your body. And then when you're in a more intimate situation with someone else, it's not just like, oh, it happens or it doesn't, which is part of it. It's all a mystery. Hopefully, if we're really doing this work, we're getting in touch with the mystery. That's the whole point, if you ask me. But we're also like, wow, I learned how to do this. I can do this. So I can come off, I could bless this person, or I can bless this land, right? If you're somewhere safe in nature where you can do this practice, with this nectar, this amrita, this fluid that comes from the body, that a lot of ancient traditions from Japanese culture, even in tantra, there's a lot of imagery, of this nectar that comes from the vagina, that is female ejaculation, as the nectar of immortality. So they would ingest it. They work with it in ceremonies and rituals, as well as our blood, right? Our menstrual blood, and semen. So, there's a lot to uncover and explore in these great mysteries. And I don't like to give everything away, in these short little moments, but there's enough here, I think, for us to work with when we come together and practice and really feel into, the power of what we're carrying. And now that you have, the context for a lot of this, we can express and we can go into a deeper connection of safety in the group, which is one of the things that I love about this work, is doing it in a group. And especially when we're doing this work virtually, although we do it in person all the time as well on our retreats and trainings. We're about to do it in the south of France, in Marseille, going to the Magdalene caves and doing this work there. And I've done it all over the world, from India to, where I live in California in Ojai, Chumash land in the Valley of the Moon, to New York, to Italy. It's really powerful to help women and people with vulvas really get in touch with this erotic liberation that they carry through these practices. So, feel your desire for wanting to know more, and what questions arise, and really, like, what information do you want? Do you need what are you wanting to experience? If you were the most sexually free and liberated you could imagine, what are some of the fantasies and ideas and dreams that come up in your awareness? And this is something you can explore through writing, taking some time now, even pausing, or we're ending this video, taking 5 minutes to respond to that, so you have some information, and even grasping anything that came through and sharing it will help the education move forth, because somatic sex education is a very precious and also rare thing. So the more accurate information we can receive from one another, but also from our own bodies and experience, the more that we really, I believe, support this flow of feminine liberation, and this erotic aliveness that really does dismantle these systems of oppression and toxic patriarchy, and all the ways that we've been conditioned to view ourselves and each other as broken, or as something being fundamentally wrong with us, when at its essence and truth, we are divine love. We are worth itself. We are, carry the worth of a billion suns. Everything in nature is pulsing with this truth, and so are we, and so is our body. So thank you for receiving this, and thank you for being in the authenticity with me in the mess. It's a very messy journey, so I really try, in the work that I share and the way that I'm called to share it, offer a space for it to be messy, and for that to be part of the process, because that's really what it's like in relationship. It's messy, and it's meant to be, because this is where we learn, this is where we grow, this is where we meet our edges, and this is where the truth really lives, right? When we go and when we find those edges, find what we need there, and then we go beyond them based on our deep truth and desire, and what we're after and what we're here for. So thank you, and sending you all many blessings and erotic aliveness and orgasmic the blessings of orgasm and ejaculation sometimes happen just through information, because a lot of the trauma that we carry, I'm going to say one more thing, is around being misinformed of our bodies. And that's why sex education is so powerful, because we might know it already because we obviously have a body, but like hearing it, seeing it, feeling it, when we gather, I'll show you a video of somebody ejaculating and seeing the body. It's like, yeah, it just does something. So even just the information can liberate us. So don't take this lightly, and also let yourself acknowledge we're not sharing anything your body doesn't already know.